Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we're going to be talking a bit about cash flow. If it's your first time here with us, this is the Business and Banter Podcast. We talk a lot about business, a little bit of banter. Most importantly, we try to add some value to your day. My name is Hunley. I am a car part reseller from Scotland. And with me, always, forever, for the good, the bad, as annoying as usual, is Sam from Australia.
And everything we're talking about today is just how we run our businesses. We are just two people on the internet. Please, if you have financial questions, ask a relative accountant in your country.
Sam's a stickler for the rules. She loves a good disclaimer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to telling people financial advice.
So on our last podcast, thank you everyone for watching. We had quite a few questions about cash flow and like kind of how you manage the money. And this is something that I really struggled with in the beginning as well. My business after about the first 2 years was not doing well because I wasn't able to manage the money correctly. And I see it's something a lot of people struggle with. We at the minute, we're seeing a lot of people dip out of reselling because it's getting harder. The balance is getting harder. It's a lot harder to reinvest in your business and being able to cover the rising cost of living. So it's something that we often overlook in our business, but it's a very important part of the business.
Absolutely. And everything is just getting so expensive. Like the thrift stores, op shops are getting more expensive, supermarkets getting more expensive, rents are going up. So it's something that we really need to be on top of for the longevity of our business.
It's also hard to grow our business to be able to fund the rising costs when we are having to spend the money on the rising costs, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, totally. I found that one of the hardest things when I first went full-time because I was used to having a wage and then doing whatever I wanted with the eBay money. And
Yeah.
I guess I gave it a second thought, but I didn't necessarily give it the thought that it needed and understood those numbers as well as I needed them to. So it was a massive learning curve when I first went full-time.
Me too, it's almost. But I'll tell you what, as soon as I got a handle on it, and I created rules in my business for my cash flow. So it's my money is no longer open to opinions or feelings, or my money is managed by rules, not by my mood that day, which is, ask my husband, it's a roller coaster. So so I've put rules in place in my business to manage my money instead of relying on me to manage my money. Is that something that you've done as well?
Yeah, so I initially had to, I think one thing that I overlooked for a really long period of time was really understanding exactly how much gross sales I needed per day to then, after fees, cost of goods, postage, overhead, etc., be able to withdraw that wage. So I have rules regarding like how much I list, how much net profit that I need per item, but then I also have rules about where the money goes after the payouts come to me each day.
So let me ask you a question. I'm going to be asking you some questions on if you're a new reseller or you are an experienced reseller who's struggling with cash flow, because only after 2 years of doing this, I had the opportunity to sit down, luckily, in the Reseller Greatness group and for someone to teach me this stuff. Right? So I'm a new reseller, or I'm in my reselling business, I'm struggling with my finances. I need to make £500 a week profit to be able to cover my bills, right? A lot of people will just assume we'll just list as much as we can, we'll have to buy as much as we can, but buying takes away from profit sometimes, right? So how would you, what did you do in your business once you figured out how much money you had to make?
So I do this really frequently. So you know how I'm going interstate at the moment and I'm upping my listing goal associated with that as well. So I run these numbers every day and I run the numbers quarterly, and just to make sure I'm on track with everything. So the most important thing is to understand how many fees you're paying, the promoted listing fee associated with that if you choose to promote a list, or if you're in a store that allows you to do so. You need to get a handle of what your cost of goods is for that item. You can either put it in the SKU or anything like that at the start. But you also need to know what the postage cost is, the cost of a satchel, the cost of the label, the cost of everything associated with packing it up to ship it out. There's also overheads in terms of storage in the beginning that you need to get a handle on. But if you don't understand those core principles and how much money is left at the end, and you're just buying, you won't know if you have enough money left over from that initial sale. You might only have $1. So if you're then going off and buying another 10 items at $5 per piece, you're actually then out of pocket another $49 that you're having to find somewhere else. So you're stealing from tomorrow rather than having an understanding of what today looks like.
Because the number one step of being able to get £500 of profit is to list enough items to get you £500 of profit. And not list enough items, but list items that net you 500 profit. Because I can go list 500 items that will all only sell for £1 profit. That gets me £500 profit. But I could also go list 10 items that will get me £500 of profit. So we have to be able to calculate if what we're listing will actually net us what we need.
Most things that I think I struggled with in the beginning is I didn't even know what my personal budget was. I had never run myself like that. Like every time I would get a pay rise at work, I would just increase my lifestyle to meet the pay rise. Like I would go on more holidays or go out for more dinners, like that kind of stuff. So I didn't have a true understanding of a month to month or quarter to quarter, because most of our utilities come quarterly, how much money I actually needed. So I had to like strip everything back to different levels in my personal life to be like, okay, I need this to survive, I need this to be comfortable, and I need anything above that to go into as some sort of saving. Or I would then continue to grow to how like my lifestyle will continue to grow to the amount that I was making on eBay.
So I had the same problem where I didn't have the vision, the long-term vision. So let's say this week I got X amount of money from eBay, because I would just take money out as and when I wanted, and there was no bills due this week. That meant this week I could live like I earn £1,000, right? Then 2 weeks down the line, there's £3,000 worth of bills due, and now that week I'm scrambling to cover the bills. So I had zero future planning in my personal life or in my business. It was one or the other. I was living like a king or begging like a pauper. Like there was no in between for me.
So one of the ways I got on top of the spending was to get a diary, a year's day diary, and then I write down everything that comes in and out of the account. So this is my business one. I have one for a personal one as well. So I do my gross sales, the fees, I do the post, any stock that I purchased that day, the postage charge, if I didn't mention that. Then on certain days, like the rent comes out and the storage unit one comes out, and the internet comes out, the phone bill comes out, etc. And they all get written in there. And then the day tallies as to whether it was a profitable day or I'm at a loss for the day. Because often on a Monday, if I'm paying for the full post for the weekend, it's 3 days worth of postage.
Yeah.
Monday often runs at a loss because I pay rent as well. And then over the week, I tally it. And then I also tally if my store grows for the week. I tally if my back end number for the store value grows. I track if my percentage of my bank account goes up in terms of my savings account. And then I review that monthly. And then the monthly goes into a quarter. And there's an overall year to see if I'm profitable on all those levels.
I think one of my biggest things was as well that I was just paying myself when, as, if, how, whatever was in the account. And I actually changed that completely to, I worked out a salary for myself based on my worst month of sales.
Oh, is that how you do this?
Yes. So I took, in the last 12 months, I take my weakest month of sales, right? And then I work my salary out on that, and then I review it every 6 months, right? Now, I am listed as a director of my company, so I can get drawings out of my company, which we do sometimes do if there is X amount in, or we review it with the accountant. But the first step for me was to get hold of my personal finances, like you said.
Yeah.
So I pay myself a salary, and that's it. Now I'm a fixed expense in my business, because we are the biggest expense in our business, and oftentimes we mismanage that.
Out of curiosity, with the rising cost of everything, when you review your salary, do you look to increase that with the rising costs, or has it kind of remained a fixed amount and you budget harder within your personal expenses?
No, it remains a fixed amount percentage of my worst month of sales.
Okay, that's interesting.
Like,
So I keep myself broke.
but
um,
that's exactly it. Like I need to budget better in my personal life, or I need to. But the problem and the reason I did that is because the urge to up your lifestyle is something that we struggled with often. And if I'm going to keep saying, oh well, actually the business needs to pay me more because this is rising and this is rising, and when there is still so much room in my personal budget for improvement, then I get back to the point where I'm going to start struggling again to reinvest in the business, and I'm going to go back in the same circle.
And you never seem to get ahead if you do that.
No, and my goal with eBay is to get ahead.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get ahead if I'm constantly upping my own personal lifestyle, am I? Like, if I genuinely want to get to a point of genuine financial security and freedom, right, then your lifestyle needs to be stagnant for at least 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, delayed gratification. It's one of our favorite sayings.
We don't like that. People don't like that. We want to be, and it's external pressure as well. It's about the mentality and the psychology of the external pressure too. We feel like success needs to be flaunted and showed, doesn't it? So like, if my business is doing really well, then surely in my personal life I should have X, 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 right? You don't though. Because instead you could reinvest that money in your business and turn it into even more.
Yeah.
To the point where you can start owning assets instead of just affording the monthly payment.
Yeah, so I get daily payouts, and then every Monday I pay myself as an individual only $300. And with the way that the supermarkets, like, I'm having to be really thrifty with that sort of money. Anything else that I get, like cash sales and stuff at the market, I keep that cash. And because I don't want to deposit it into my bank account because I don't want to go into the bank. So I keep my business card with a certain float, and any cent above that gets moved over into my investment account. And I do different investments from within that, but I can't touch them.
No.
So I can't like come and go.
I struggle with managing money. This is something I struggle with a lot. And so I've had to be kind of scale back how many times I have to manage my money. Almost like scale, you don't want to touch your item too many times, right? When you're listing it. If you can touch your item 40 times when you list it, you're wasting time. So if I have to manage and touch my money 7 times a week, I struggle with that. So I've gone on to weekly payouts because that means I only have to manage my money every Tuesday. That's it. Right? And so when I get my payout on Tuesday, I have it set up that it goes X percentages and amounts into different accounts. Like, those are rules that are set. So I don't even have to think about it. X amount goes into our savings, done. It's automated. Comes in, goes out. X percentage of my payout goes into a VAT pot, right? Done. That's just like, it's not even my money. It doesn't belong to me. So take it out of my account. It's in a different account. It doesn't belong to me. I don't look at it. It's not mine. It's fine. It's gone. That also means when tax and VAT is due, it doesn't even pay me. Just take it. It's fine. It's there. Then I have X amount that goes, I get paid. And then what is left in my account is my processing account. So this is my business account, right? Then I have I list 35 per day. My cost of goods is X amount. So 35 times X amount times 7 is what goes into my sourcing pot every week. Because that's what I need to pay for my items. Like every week, that amount goes into a sourcing pot. Sometimes the sourcing pot grows, sometimes the sourcing pot goes down, depending on how we buy and what deals we get. But we never go over that amount. That amount is what goes into that pot. So I have a pot to pay all my tax out of that's already saved. I have a pot to pay all my stock out of that's already saved. I have a savings account that's already automated, and I've already paid myself.
You're so
Done. Like, these are rules. That's just how it is. Then what's left in my business account is supposed to cover the processing costs, right? And that is what I call, like, I
like
don't
a
really know
float.
what's the right word for it, but that account has to grow as well because your processing cost should never be more than what you actually have in that account, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that account pays my rent, my postage, my everything else, and I keep track on a weekly basis of is that account still going up regardless of all the bills we're paying? Because it should do. In a successful
Yeah,
business, that account should go up.
it's really so you mentioned your VAT tax. So we have a similar tax. Is yours quarterly?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have a similar tax here called GST. So it's different from like end of financial year, like income tax.
Uh-huh.
So we pay it quarterly as well. And we have up until the 28th of the month that the quarter ends to lodge it. And then you get your bill. And then you have a further 28 days to pay it. So I like to lodge mine as soon as humanly possible
Yeah.
because I never have enough money in my float in my business account and I will not touch my investments. So then I have to hustle as fast as I can within that 28-day period to be able to come up with that money. And you'd be amazed at how hard you can work when you are that broke.
But why not just put something away every time you get a payout for it?
Well, I do. I have all the money sitting there in the bank account, but it's the mentality that I won't touch it.
Oh,
Yeah. So when I get my money, so I run with a fixed couple $1,000 in my business account, and any dollar over that gets split 30-30-10. So 30% goes into like a cash savings account, 30% goes into a long term share account, 30% goes into crypto, and 10% goes into whatever high interest, not high interest, high risk investment that I choose to do at the time. So it's a bit of like play money, if you will. But if I had to, I could liquidate or just move from that savings account. It would take 2 days to come across, but it's like a sacred account. Like if the roof would need to fall in, or would have to be like evicted for me to touch it. So if I get the VAT tax, it's just motivating for me to be able to come up with that money and be creative and crafty and like push to that next level every quarter.
yeah. And it's so like our savings account, we don't touch either. We've had to dip into it a bit now with our situation of buying the
Of course,
house.
yeah.
But the fact that I'm able to do that and I
Right?
have the money to do that is why I have a savings account.
Yeah,
Like
that emergency. Yeah.
I know. So um, with my taxes,
Mm-hmm.
I put away 20% of my payout. So my gross payout, 20%, because my corporation tax is 20% on my profit, and then my VAT is 7% on my gross
Yeah.
sales. But putting away 20% of my gross payout has always covered all my taxes. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the year, if there's a lot of money left in that tax account, which does happen because I oversave for taxes, I'll move some of that back out into my savings.
And it's a bonus.
Yeah, it's like you've saved a bit, like it's a bonus little add to your savings account at the end of the year to be like, well done, you've nailed it. There you, there you go.
You have it in a high interest savings account as well, so you can earn interest off the money that's just sitting there as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, that we
that's
earn.
nice little
Yeah,
extra.
I think you'll be silly not to. Like any money you save, put it in an interest account where you earn. And then I know when you look at interest accounts, the percentages, you think, oh, what's that? 4%, whatever the case is. But go work it out. That's free money. It's free money. Who says no to free money?
Just because like it's rewarding within itself. Admittedly, I might like earn like $180 a month, and that's not a lot these days. But I mean, that's still free money.
So how do you budget for stock? So I see a lot of people who are needing the money they're getting to pay their bills, and then they don't have
Yeah.
anything left for stock.
So everything that comes in and out of my business account has to come out of that couple thousand that sits there. So in the beginning, I have more time than money. So I would do a lot of creative ways to get stock. I would do like a lot of Facebook ads, and I would look for free things on Marketplace and stuff like that. Obviously, as the business has grown and I've had more time, more money than time, I've had to be more creative in longer term ways of being able to source stock for cheaper ways and having agreements with people and stuff like that within the op shops, fish stores, whatever you want to call them. And that's been really helpful. But basically, I have to make that several $1,000s last for absolutely everything that comes up, like everything. So I budget within the realms of what's there. That's simple as it goes.
I think a good budget starts with the first item you sell as well. And Tech and Sports did a great video on this, his Techonomics video that you can check out on his YouTube channel, where he literally goes through the sale and shows you how to. Each sale should have its own mini budget, shouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Yep.
Yeah. And you should always remove the cost of goods. If I sell something and I get £20 for it into my bank, the cost of goods we take out of that to reinvest in new stock, and the profit, because a lot of people include the cost of goods in their profit. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
I made 20 quid. You didn't make £20 on this because you spent £3 on it. So you made 17. So only that 17 is profit. The £3 should go back into the business.
So when I work out my profit, it's not just after fees, postage, and cost of goods. It's after every other thing comes out of that. So it's like a cost of a percentage, obviously, a cost of the storage unit, my phone bill, the internet, my rent, my car, all those things. And if I'm aiming for a $10 profit per item, it has to be after every single thing that it takes to run this business, including paying me a small wage, comes out of it. And that's what's left over to grow the business, pay my taxes, and go into the savings and investments.
How do you work out the cost of everything to run the business? Because a lot of people struggle with this as well. I personally took every single bill I have in my business, worked out the annual cost, divided it by 365. So I get a daily running cost for my business. I need X amount a day to run this business.
Yeah, I did the same. So I tracked it over the diary. And obviously, because I have to do taxes and stuff like that, I have a big spreadsheet where everything gets lodged in there. Because there's some things that I only pay once a year. And because it is only a once a year, it's easy to miss when you're working out that calculation. So you really have to get deep. Like, I had to be really real with myself and look at all the secrets that you tap and go and don't want to think about, like the chocolate at the supermarket.
Yep. And I also worked out my average. I work out my average postage cost every month because my things differ in sizes. I work it out every month. So at the end of the month, let's say on the 5th of the next month, how many items did I sell last month?
Yeah.
And how much did I pay on postage? And I include all the postage costs, the return postage cost, the outgoing postage cost. Every single pound I paid to postage goes into a pot, and then it's how much I spent divided by how many items I sold. And that gives me an average postage cost per item. And I do that every month to make sure it stays accurate.
So I do it every week. And then it goes into a monthly tally and then a quarterly tally and a yearly tally. And the reason why was, so a long time ago when I did join the Tech and Sports group, he said that he would never have, well, he would likely not have to increase the costs that he was charging people for postage because his postage price per item continued to remain low. And I was like, how is that possible? Like, the post goes up for everyone. Like, how are you this anomaly? But it's purely like my average cost to post an item is $6.40 because of bundles. The bundles actually brings the cost per item down quite a bit. So if you're looking, you can actually see ways that you can save money through incentivizing those multi-quantity purchases from each buyer. But if you don't
That's
look,
also how I calculated whether doing free returns for me was worth it. Because when I took my postage cost, having free returns on only increased my average posting cost per item by about 18p.
Yeah. That's not a lot.
Like, am I willing to offer better service to a customer for the sake of 18p per order? Yes, I am.
Yeah. And the rank, the boost that you get from that is
Exactly.
That number also for me includes return postage, and I think the Australia Post cost of postage has just gone up to like $11. So I'm almost at half price than the average person.
But these are important. Like, would you say that for someone who is struggling with budgeting and reinvesting in the business, that a good first step is to do line by line accounting, like every single sale, work out every single one? Because I've tried to do line by line accounting and it bores me to death. So once a month on the 5th, I do my new 1 to 100, which is basically where I work out if I sell an item for £1 and I go from 1 to 100, like Tech taught us, and I insert my new cost. So my new average postage, my new average running cost, my new average, and every month I do that and I just work off that because I find it so boring to do line by like and to be honest with you, I sell about 1,000 items a month. And to sit there and do that for 1,000 items is not my idea of a rocking Friday night.
Mine either, but that's why in the beginning it's really important to do these things because you do have more time than money. So these
Yeah.
are where you can learn those really good habits, not play catch up like you and I had to do. So
Yep.
I was multiple years into the journey when I realized I wasn't profitable. I was drowning. I
Yep.
didn't know where my money was going. And I had to reinvent good habits and started doing the line by line to really get a handle on where everything was going. And if I had done that in the beginning, I would be so much further ahead than I am currently.
I agree 100%. Like the reason I almost failed in the first 2 years was because I didn't know my money and I mismanaged
Mm.
money, and then I turned to debt to try to
Yeah.
save the business. But then the money I got from taking out the loans, I was mismanaging.
Yeah.
So it's a never-ending circle. If you're not in control of your money, you're going to keep throwing money at it. But if you continue to mismanage the money you're throwing at it, you're just going around in this vicious circle and nothing's ever getting any better, which is where I was.
I was trying to scale into profitability because I was like, if I
Oh,
just sell more things in
yeah.
my model, not text model, I'll make that money back. So I just kept throwing money at it. And key point, it doesn't work. Like you have to then increase your cost, like your running cost, to be able to store it. You need to increase the number of items that you're purchasing. You can't scale into profitability. You have to be profitable from the start. And that was a really humbling experience for me to have to pull everything apart and realize that I was the problem and that my ability to manage money, which is ironic because I managed over $1 million budget for the Northern Territory government, but I had a finance department that I would constantly argue with, and I'd be like, no, this $1,000 is like a rounding error to you. I'm spending it. And eventually they would just cave. But I didn't learn good habits through doing that. I learned the worst habits because I got my way, and I don't always get to have my way.
But this is one of those things where it comes to that saying of, are you working in the business or on the business?
Yeah.
Like knowing money management and knowing where every single pound in your business is going or dollar. Literally, I did for right after I learned the hard money lesson. I followed every single pound that came into my business like a stalker. Every single pound had to answer to me about where you're going, why you're going there, who told you to go there, is this a good idea for you to go there? And that sounds a bit psychotic, but you have to know where every single pound is going. And this is the part where you have to work on your business and not in your business. Instead of spending your time blindsided and just carry on listing, and not getting the results, you have to take a step back, look at your business, and go figure out the maths.
Yeah. And I think one real important key step that people miss is that if you're not doing the research to learn your sell through of the specific item in the specific style, cut, color, etc. of clothing that you're listing, you may be listing that item to get that sale in 90 days. You might be listing it to sell it in 5 years' time. So do you really want to invest money for 5 years, or do you need that back tomorrow?
I think we often don't realize how long it's going to take for the money to come back, like you were saying. I often see people buy things. I source differently, so I don't handpick my items. So mine isn't to such a great extent as yours is, where you handpick your items. But oftentimes we pick up an item and we're like, "Oh, this is going to sell for £300." Yes, but have you worked out when?
Mm.
Because oftentimes a year and a half later, those specialized items require a specialized buyer.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. And
So
people
we
know
often sit on them a lot longer. Even me, I pull out a car part and, oh, this is a banger. It's going to sell for 500 quid. But then I go check how many of those cars are still on the road in the UK.
oh,
Oh,
that's cool.
only about 30. Okay. Yes, it's a banger. When it breaks, I'm the only person that's going to help them. But there's only 30 of these cars left.
Of
Okay.
course.
I have to wait.
Mm.
But we're
Yeah.
already banking on that money without knowing when we're going to get the money.
Yeah, and if we don't spend the time to do the research, that's where you'll get yourself tripped up. So I have in the past, not now, spent like $50 on an item to have it sit, and it's like it's still sitting. It still hasn't sold.
Yeah.
There's been so many years, and it's like a brick. And because I have $50 tied up in it, I will let it sell eventually, and it's reduced so much, but one day it will sell. And I didn't know that, but if I had spent $1 on 50 items and then sold them like 4, 5, 6 times in the multiple years that item's been sitting in my inventory, I have a boatload more money at the end of that than that one single sale.
It's funny because expensive bangers aren't always the best route for your money.
Mm.
And that is like, it's almost this mentality of like when we were younger, we saw supercars, right? And we're like, oh, those are great. If you have a supercar, you've made it. And if you, like, one day I'm going to have a Ferrari. And like, when I was little, I wanted to go into advertising and marketing, and I wanted to go work for Ferrari because I met someone who does advertising and marketing for Ferrari, and they gave him a Ferrari as a company car, and I thought that was like the top tier of making it in life. Until you get older and you learn about money and you realize buying a new Ferrari is the worst thing you can do with your money.
Well, devalues the second you drive it out.
Like
But
literally the minute you start it,
it's done.
done.
The really interesting thing about that is the psychology behind that. So
Yes.
my family is like, oh, look, this person's driving a blah, 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 whatever car. And they're like, that's status. But they don't look at the person driving it. They imagine themselves driving it. So the fact that we spend all this money to see perceivably be in this like position of power, no one cares who's driving it. They have no idea. You could pop out of there. They don't see you. They see the Ferrari. So it doesn't give you the status in which you think it does because no one sees you.
This is fab. This is like, wait, I had this argument with my husband. My husband has a private number plate. His dad also has one. They have like their surname one, and they like, and I was like, the one day I said, why? Why do you have that? It's like, oh, well, it's nice to have it. So he's like, you don't even see it when you drive in the car. What value does that add to your life? Zero. Do you know the value it adds? It adds value to how you think other people see you. But let me tell you something. If people are busy reading your number plate, they're not looking through the side window to see who's in the car. They're looking at the number plate. So
Yes.
there's zero link to that number plate to you. It makes no sense to me. No sense at all.
It's one of the biggest eye openers that I've had that like people will go past the mansion down the road. They don't care who's inside it. They just envision themselves in that because we all want to be the person that's down the road that appears to be doing much better than us, but realistically, we don't know who's inside. That house could be abandoned. That person that's driving the car could have it on credit and not being able to make their payments, and they're this close to foreclosure.
But there's a reason why the real rich person builds their house behind a bunch of trees.
Because they don't want to be
Because they built it for their own benefit, not to be seen in it.
correct.
The person who buys and builds their massive mansion on top of a hill with spotlights on it is probably in debt to own that house because they care more about being seen than they do about the actual benefit of having it. That was very judgmental of me, but I believe I was right.
There's this house for sale in Queensland in the Gold Coast, and it's the most expensive house that's currently for sale in Australia. And it's some investment banker. And it is, and I will be judgy, it is for his very particular taste, and that's fine. But you build the house because you think it's amazing and you think it's worth this much money and it's to your taste and you think that you look amazing and incredible and powerful in this house. who has your mindset? Like, that house is built to you, to your
Yeah.
tastes. How many people have you and your taste? You. So
The
it
people,
actually doesn't have the desirable resale value that you think it does.
well, the people who want to be like you, isn't it? That's who you're going to wait for. Someone who wants to be like you so badly that they're willing to adjust their actual taste to suit what you want. But that's what it is. I think we spend, and to just bring it back to like the conversation we're having, spending money on your lifestyle instead of on your own financial security will never get you to the top, ever. You
No.
are always 100% better off putting that money into savings or investment or assets that earn you income than items that you think will get you admiration from other people.
I sleep so much better being in such a broke mentality. Like, I had to wait until this week to buy a book that was like $15 because I simply just didn't have any money in my account, and I won't transfer the money over, and I'm happy to wait. But I sleep better knowing that, and having built this like secondary side to my life where I'm very comfortable, and delaying the purchase, and sometimes I don't even purchase it, I just decide I don't want it, than I did earning way more than than I currently do in the government, and I was living paycheck to paycheck.
I think a big reason why we're not able to invest in our business is because we unknowingly, and a lot of the spending you do, you don't even realize if you're not tracking it. Do you know how many times in my personal life you tap your card? It's not real money if you tap it though, because you don't see it leaving your account, is that? And then at the end of the month, when I started budgeting, I would go add up all those transactions, and I'm like, that's 200 quid worth of mindless tapping I did this month.
Yeah, and you got nothing to show for it.
And then we struggle to reinvest into our businesses. Me specifically, I struggle to reinvest into my business while I'm out here mindlessly tapping 200 quid a month.
I do feel like that was like the greatest investment that banks did, was coming up with the tap and go technology,
100%.
because the rate of like increased expenses that people are having on a month-to-month, day-to-day basis, like, it's just out of control.
100%. You don't, it's a psychology behind that as well. Not physically seeing the money leave is the problem. And this is in our business as well. The first step to handling control of your finances is to physically see every pound come in and come out of your business. Because
And
it starts to hurt. It starts to hurt when you're watching it happen. When we're just mindlessly tapping, and then in our business just buying this on Amazon and buying that, and like, that's when it hurts. And also, if you want something but you don't need it today, right now, emergency, make yourself wait 5 days. How many times at the end of the 5 days do you not even want it anymore because you've moved on to something else you want?
All the time.
All the time. Or even me, all the time. If I
Yeah.
don't need something now, today, imminently, as in my business can't function without it or my life is going to come to a standstill, make yourself wait 5 days. And then after 5 days, if you genuinely still want it and you're that, and you can buy it not once but 3 times over without going into debt, go buy it. I promise you, after 2 weeks, you're going to think to yourself, I shouldn't have bought it. But
Yeah, I've done that so many times. I want a drone, and then every time that like niggle comes up, I make myself wait 30 days, and then at the end of the 30 days I'm like, oh, I don't want that anymore. And then like 3 months later I'm like, oh, I want the drone again. I'm like, no, wait, because the feeling passes every time, and it's a massive outlay for me to go have fun. And just like, I'm not saying don't have fun, but obviously I don't want it if at the end of the 30 days I don't want it anymore.
Yep. I think the key to this as well is there has to be rules for your money, the same way we have rules for our business, the same way we have rules for our lives. You have to be able to take emotion out of it. I've set up my finances where everything is run by strict rules. How I feel on that Tuesday when my payout comes has nothing to do with what happens to the payout.
Yeah.
And that is so important. Like, my finances in my business cannot be ruled by my current mood, or because some days I'm like, YOLO, let's live our best lives. We work hard. Other days I'm like, no, we just have to focus. We keep giving it more. I'm like, I'm gonna Grant Cardone the crap out of my life. And then like No, but it is. Like
Yeah.
on different days, you feel differently. How you feel cannot affect how you manage your money. There's a
You
top
said
tip.
you said something really powerful to me like months ago. You said that
Oh,
the best version of you makes the goals, and then the everyday version of you has to show up for them, and you hate that. And it's so
this is a
true. Like,
constant struggle in my life because this version of me that reads all these atomic habit books and like wants to like build an empire is the one setting the rules and making the goals in my business, and then this version of me who just wants to live my best life and be ditzy and make no life decisions because I'm just a passenger princess has to struggle through them on a daily basis because I refuse to give in and admit that maybe that's not a great idea. Because can I tell you what? The great version of me makes great goals. And the I don't want to do it version of me just has to suck it up and do it.
it's fascinating to me that you actually are able to push through on the day-to-day basis, because obviously that's not something that everyone has the ability to. And do you think that there was like a turning point in which you were like, okay, I have to do this? Or was there like something that changed that the everyday version of you is able to push through?
I don't know. I think what happened was I started realizing the potential of the opportunity we had.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
because when things were going really bad, I thought eBay isn't as great as people say. eBay, you can't really make money. eBay's closing down, but this is true.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
I got to a point where I make all the changes and I'm starting to see results and I'm starting to realize, hold on a minute, this
Mm.
opportunity is incredible. Look, like,
And
you have no idea what I can achieve with this, right? And that realization means I cannot not do it because I don't ever want to
mm.
go back to, oh, this is horrible, this isn't working. No, I want to be here where I am now.
That's really interesting, because I love the psychology of things, like the fact that you're able to rewrite essentially your entire, I guess, framework and like perspective on things because you realize that the opportunity was so great is really profound. Not a lot of people, I think, can do that.
I don't want to do it. I tantrum about it, ask my husband. Sometimes I cry about it. Sometimes I'm mad at everyone about it. Like, Sam, you know, the last week has been really hard for me. I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling. My kids are home. I'm struggling, to be honest with you, with a lot of mom guilt. Like, am I spending
Mm.
enough time with my children while we're on summer holidays? And am I also doing enough in my business? Right? This juggle we have is hard for parents, for moms and
Mm.
dads, well, my husband as well. Um, and it's been hard. It's hard, like mentally, it takes a toll on me. It does sometimes make me question, am I doing too much in the business? Should I be the type of person who says, no, today I'm not going to do it? But the truth is, I had a realization 2 days ago where we took the kids to a theme park for the whole day. We were there the whole day, spent hours and hours. By the end of it, they were absolutely knackered. They were exhausted. They just wanted food and they just wanted to come home. And we got home and I was like, I prepped the week before so I'd have 2 days just to spend with them full time. And do you know what my kids said to me? They said to me, okay, we're just gonna go to our room now. You can just stay here and watch TV.
Are we done with you?
And they were like, you can't come with us. Like, we love you. But they also are okay with having time on their own and entertaining themselves. And I think there's a mentality, and I'm sorry to go off track here, but there's a big mentality in society now that we have to be the entertainers for our children or we don't spend enough time with them. And that's not true. Because when I think back on my youth and being in summer holidays, my mom kicked me out the back door. And then I wasn't allowed to come back in because she's cleaning and then come back when the lights come on.
Yeah.
And that's something I've really been struggling with for the last week, is that guilt and that feeling of, and I still push through and I still did my work every single day. I just had to change when I do it. But I don't know how to say this. It's, even when it's hard, you have to keep going. When it's hard and you're feeling like this, you have to understand that your perception of things aren't necessarily accurate. You're being led by emotion. So when we're struggling to work in our business and we're struggling to get through the day and we're struggling to meet the goals our motivated self said, we have to step back and realize our perception today because of our mood is not accurate. So just do it anyway, because tomorrow, the day after, when you've come out of your funk, you're going to realize that what you saw and what you felt in that moment wasn't accurate.
I think from like my perspective of kind of going through the week with you, and obviously not having children in any capacity, so I can't actually like fully empathize. I from what I've heard from you, feel like it's a like you're kind of torn between the baby that you've built, which is your business, and the
Yeah.
babies that you've birthed. And you want to give them both equal amounts of time, love, and attention, and you feel torn between that. And that's a totally like understandable and realistic situation and feeling, because your motivated self wants the best for your children and sets these grand expectations of all these things that you will do with them on school holidays, similar to within your business. And like they're both really admirable and admirable things that you're doing, and you should really praise yourself, not have that guilt.
But I think it's about perception in the moment. And this is what comes back to not having our emotions and our feelings dictate how we manage things in our business as well. Because if I had made all the changes I wanted to make in those 3 days I was having a really hard time, I would be in a very different position today.
Yeah.
Right? Because I wouldn't have listed, because I thought like it's more important not to do that. I wouldn't have managed my money correctly, or I would have gone the complete opposite direction. Like, we have to wait it out, set rules based on actual need and not feelings, because the truth is my kids need me to work to
Of
pay
course.
the bills. My kids need us to buy this house to have somewhere to live.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't make those decisions when we're in that funk. When you're in that funk, that is the best time to stay consistent to what you were doing. Just do what you were doing until you come out of it and you can zoom out.
I sent you a YouTube video of Simon Beard, I think his name is, of Culture Kings, and his entire, if I can remember, I'll link it down in the description, but his entire warehouse burnt down. And the very thing that he did the next day after losing $10 million worth of stock was get up and follow his normal routine. And he learned within that process that your emotions dictate what's going to occur as the outcome of your decision making. And if you can just continue forth, even in the worst situations possible, the outcome will be better.
100%. And that's what I've learned this week. I haven't watched that video, but I feel like that's a banger, because that's exactly what I realized this week, is that I cannot make rash changes based on how I feel. And that was a lot of the reason why I was mismanaging money as well. Today I felt like my kids deserved an all-inclusive holiday to Turkey. So I took $2,000 out of my business account, okay, because I want to be the world's best mom and take my kids to Turkey. Okay, my kids don't need Turkey. I took my kids to M&D's down the road for a day, and they had so much fun that they wanted to be left alone for 2 days and just stay in bed and watch their iPads. Okay, they had just as much fun there. But if I had made rash decisions when I felt the way I felt, my business today would have been in a very different situation, and so would my family have been.
Most of the worst decisions I've made in my life are emotive. Like, I am notorious for burning bridges and like setting fire to things when I walk out of them, because I tend to do it from an emotive place, and I don't think of the consequences that are perhaps on the other side when I calm down. And I have had to learn a lot of patience and a lot of remaining present and being able to separate myself from the emotion and give it time later on, when I'm like just before bed kind of thing, to process those emotions, and I have that safe space to do so. So I never make a decision in the heat of the moment anymore.
That's something I'm struggling a lot with as well. And like I also used to be quite volatile in that, especially when the emotion I was feeling was some kind of injustice or anger. Then I'm like, set fire to the world. We're all gonna burn together. And like do irreparable damage sometimes, isn't it? Because you go so overboard. And And it's strange because I often say to Sam, like, we're the same person on a
Oh
different
yeah.
continent. Like,
Yeah.
we genuinely are. And I personally found my faith is what's helping me kind of combat that as well. But we never make good decisions based on in the moment feelings. I'll tell you what, if you're still feeling exactly the same way 48 hours later, act on it. But if 48 hours later you would have been ashamed of what you would have done in the moment, which 99% of the time I am, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it. And that comes like sometimes you're in the moment and you're like, oh, I really want to do this, or I really want to get this, or and then we go and we spend the money, and then 48 hours later we're like, and then I don't know if you're like this, but because I'm a reseller, I refuse to return stuff unless it's genuinely faulty. So like I buy stuff and then I have remorse for buying it, and they offer free returns and stuff, but I won't.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore, but because I don't really buy anything. But yeah, previously I was the same. It's really interesting because we are the same person, and because we both don't necessarily like spending money unnecessarily. I'm sitting on a free chair that I was late to the podcast because I couldn't actually get it up because the pump function is broken. And Henley has also a chair that's broken, but today she's sitting on the floor because she doesn't have a chair.
So like my chair is the office is also, but all of my office chairs are free. Two of
Yeah.
them are broken. I'm still using them. Today I'm on the floor because I'm filming my podcast at home because
Mhm.
I'm at home with my kids. But I'm not above sitting on the floor. Like I'm cool with sitting on the floor.
One of the things that's helped me the most, and I don't know if other people are like me in that they have to kind of like get to the understanding and of the why of everything, and like the why of why I'm like I am and why I have those bad money habits. But I read a book called The Psychology of Money, and it breaks down the history of how behaviors regarding money have been formed and takes you through like the Great Depression and then up to World War II, and how during that time after World War II, everyone's kind of wages grew equally and people could live like the person next door, and there was no class society. Everyone just grew equally. And then after the 70s recession, that all went to the toilet. So my parents grew up watching their parents live the same lifestyle as their neighbors, and so my parents carried that through my entire life, but they no longer, after the 70s, the classes came back and everything changed. And they no longer were able to keep up with the person next door, but they still tried to. And they put everything on credit card and they live way outside their means. The money just falls through their fingers. And actually being able to understand where that comes from for me and where I was taught that, I was like, okay, I can understand that. And I can then put that kind of to bed. Like, I don't need to worry about what the person down the road is doing or my neighbors are doing or even what you are doing in comparison to what I am doing. I need to worry about just me. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. Is that where the saying keeping up with the Joneses come from?
Yes, because we could actually keep up with the Joneses.
That's very cool.
Interesting,
I
isn't
didn't
it?
know that.
It's a really interesting book.
I should read it.
It's
I
long.
won't, but I should. I go through phases. I
I
go
think
through
you're
phases
good.
where I'm like hectic into the reading and then not so much, and then hectic into it. And
Talks a lot about saving.
I think as much as it's important to have rules and know your numbers, the psychology behind it is really important as well. I think a lot, well, almost all of my money troubles came from decisions I based off of other people.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know, and that happens in our business as well. Like people think, oh, I need this for my business because everyone has that. The amount of money I see people pay for the aesthetic of their business compared to actually what they need in the business is just incredible.
I spent more money in the beginning of my business trying to copy what people on YouTube were doing, and now I'm on the other side and I actually have the money to be able to do it. I have the cheapest setup in the world. There's like a $2 piece of carpet on a $5 piece of timber from the tip that's held up by some weights that I found at a garage sale with a hook. And that hook was the most expensive part at like $9. And my setup is so cheap. Whereas previously I had all these beautiful like light boxes and specialized backgrounds because that's what people were
Yeah.
doing on YouTube. And you don't need to do that. You don't need to keep up with the people on YouTube. And if you try to, you're actually going to put yourself at a disadvantage. You need to just grow gently and softly and slowly and really understand what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Spend your money on being an actual business instead of trying to look like a business.
Yeah.
Like the amount of money, like even silly things like, oh, I've got to have fancy folders for all my receipts. You don't. Now I have a drawer.
Yeah,
I have a drawer, a receipt drawer. All my
Yeah.
receipts go in the drawer.
I have a Tupperware container.
In a drawer I got for free from my dad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to look like a business to anyone else. Like,
Yeah. As
just
long as it
be a business. Be a business that's able to generate money and help you further in life instead of looking like one that's not. Because I see so much like gadgets and you need this and you need these 500 planners that you don't. You need a notebook. This is actually bad because this is a personalized notebook, but it's because my mom has a business making them. I didn't spend money on it. So that's not, I was like going to say just have a normal notebook, and then I realized mine's personalized, but it's just because my mom makes them, so it was free.
I think a lot of disconnect regarding all that sort of stuff is people forget that they are the business. So as long as they are okay and they are functioning, then the business will function.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
you don't need to look at it like anything.
It's important to always come back to what the purpose of the business is. The purpose of the business is to provide you with financial aid or security or whatever the case is, and do what promotes that, do what furthers that goal, and have clear rules, and you'll always be on a better track. If every decision you make is based off of, does this help me reach my financial goal, then it's a lot easier to stay on track.
And before we finish up, I'd like to add that I think a real big key is that if you set the goal high enough than just getting by, you push so much harder and you become a little bit more like thrifty on how you're going to get there, and like you push that little bit harder to seek the knowledge and like build out everything that you need to build out more aggressively and assertively and confidently, because you are moving in that bigger direction.
Yep, I agree. So I'm going to give her outro another go. So I just want everyone to know that I know the version of the outro you saw last week, that's not the actual version that happened the first time. Because the first time she did it, I didn't know what was going on. She played the music, but then we couldn't hear her over the music. So I was just sitting here jingling to music, thinking she's just playing music as an outro. And it turns out she was talking the whole time. So she actually redid it before we launched the episode.
I didn't redo it. I just suddenly very quickly got good at editing, because normally we don't edit. We just clip where we need to if there's internet issues. But no, I actually like exported it and put it into iMovie. I know, like you with the conspiracy theory one, you were like, I want to put like a moving UFO in it. I can actually do that now, Henley. I've learned how. I know. But this week there is no music.
Short, my friend.
So this week there is no music. I'm just going to say thank you for joining us on the Business
I'm
and Banter.
I'm disappointed.
I promise next week there will be a better outro. I just need to learn how to get it to play so that Hanley can hear both sounds. But if you would like to like, comment, and subscribe, it would be appreciated. And please reach out if you have any more topics. This was a really interesting one for us to discuss, and I appreciate it.
I'm disappointed I didn't get to jiggle us out. But on that very boring, monotone note, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
I'm going to fire her. Bye.